Hi there, this is Revenge by James. Just relax and enjoy the story. It tends to spark some interesting thoughts. Wyatt said it like he was ordering a sandwich. We're giving your division to my nephew. Just like that. No warning, no build-up. He dropped it right there in the middle of the Monday ops meeting, while 9 other people sat around the glass conference table, pretending to look at the quarterly charts on the screen. Nobody moved, nobody blinked, and not one of them would meet my eyes. Quick note before I keep going. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. Tanner was 2 chairs down from him, lounging like he already had his name on the door. The guy hadn't even graduated yet. I'd built that division from the ground up over 9 years. 9. Started with a laptop and a folding table in a rented warehouse. Wyatt never asked how any of it ran. He thought graphs grew themselves. I kept my voice steady. Congratulations to him. I even smiled. I don't know why. Instinct maybe. Habit. Tanner gave a smug little nod, like I'd finally figured out where I belonged. I kid you not, the only sound in that room was someone adjusting their chair. That's what silence looks like when you're being gutted in public. I looked around once, slow. No one said a word. I told myself, don't blink, don't flinch. When a man tries to shrink you in front of a crowd, you don't hand him the satisfaction of seeing it land. You stand, you breathe, you leave. Wyatt clicked the remote, flipping to the next chart like we were done. That was the cue. The room broke into a weird little shuffle. Someone muttered sorry without moving their lips. A couple of them had worked under me for years, and couldn't even raise their heads. Nobody challenged him. Of course they didn't. Wyatt owned the place. Before we get too far in, my name's Brent. I'm 57. I live in Joliet, Illinois. I didn't end up in that room because I lost a step. I ended up there because my success became a prize. Something he could give to family, like a trophy he didn't earn. 9 years earlier, Wyatt called me into his office. Didn't even sit down. He just stood by the window and said, "Fix the supply side or I shut it down. You've got 8 months." That was it. No resources, no backup, just a deadline and a mess with my name on it. Trucks showing up late, inventory counts off. Invoices full of typos. Suppliers 1 bad week away from walking. They'd burned through 3 managers in 2 years. 1 quit, 1 got moved, 1 started lying. I didn't try to outsmart the spreadsheet. I grabbed a rental, filled the tank, and started driving. Warehouse to warehouse. Back lots. Small factories with metal roofs and cracked linoleum floors where the coffee tasted like diesel and nobody wore name tags. I didn't show up with PowerPoints. I brought a notebook and kept my mouth shut. Just listened, watched, took notes. The first big partner I managed to keep was Armin. Guy ran a parts outfit outside Aurora. Smart, built like a pipe wrench. Always looked like he was 1 bad deal from telling everyone to shove it. First time we met, he folded his arms and said, "You're the 4th face in 2 years. Why are you different?" I told him the truth. I won't promise what I can't deliver. If I don't know, I'll say I don't know. He stared at me for a good 10 seconds, like he'd heard that line before. But he gave me a shot. Small orders at first, nothing that could hurt him. I called him every time we were late, before he had to call me. When I said Tuesday, he got Tuesday. When I said Friday, he got Friday. He started answering on the first ring. That was the shift. That's how it started. 1 honest talk at a time. 1 kept promise at a time. I did that on repeat, partner after partner. Didn't try to win people over with charm. I wasn't charming. I was consistent. I showed up, told the truth, and followed through. If we dropped the ball, I said so. I didn't duck calls or dress it up with fake apologies. I said, "We blew it. Here's how we fix it." By year 3, we had 14 active supplier relationships that could take a hit and stay standing. Not just fair weather friends, actual partners. The kind who'd call and say, "We've got a truck stuck in Kentucky, but we'll figure it out." That kind of loyalty doesn't show up in a quarterly report. By year 5, we were leading the company. Better fill rate, fewer errors, lower turnover. I didn't hire rock stars. I hired people who gave a damn. I trained them myself. We didn't chase buzzwords or add flair. We just delivered. By year 7, we doubled the volume, took less staff to move more freight, and still kept our promises. And Wyatt, he showed up twice a year, walked through with his polished shoes and his I own everything smile, shook 2 hands, maybe 3, said something bland like, looking good, then left. He never asked how it ran, never asked who kept it running, never said thank you, didn't need to. I wasn't looking for a trophy. I just needed people to keep their word. That was the job to me. Not some dream of getting recognized, just doing it right. Because when things break, it's not the bosses who get yelled at. It's the drivers, the loaders, the line workers. I built that division so they wouldn't have to cover for someone else's laziness ever again. About 4 months before Wyatt tossed me out, I was eating eggs at a place near the rail yards. One of those spots with 4 booths, no music, and a menu laminated so long ago the corners were curling. I liked it because the coffee was hot, the waitress knew my name, and nobody talked business in there until that day. I was halfway through my plate when a guy slid into the booth behind me and ordered eggs and rye in a voice I'd heard before, deep, clipped, didn't waste syllables. I knew it from a trade panel last year. Marcus ran our main competitor. I'd never met him in person, but I'd heard plenty. He didn't play games. He turned halfway, looked at me like he was checking a box, and said, "Brent, right? Mind if I join you?" I looked him over. Button-down shirt, sleeves rolled, no tie, tired eyes. He wasn't smiling. I said, "Sure." He slid in, didn't waste a second. Not a pitch, just a question. I waited. "How long until Wyatt pushes you out?" I actually laughed. It came out of me fast and awkward. "That blunt, huh?" He didn't laugh back, just sipped his water and looked me dead on. "I've watched him a long time," he said. "When something works, he makes it a family possession." I leaned back. "Why me, though? Why am I the one he's got to remove?" "Because you hold the know-how and the trust," he said. "He can't control that. One day he'll try to bottle it in someone else. Nephew, cousin, doesn't matter. As long as they smile right and have the last name." He pulled a napkin out of the dispenser, grabbed a pen from his pocket, and wrote down a number. He slid it across the table. "Not a front desk line," he said. "That's mine. If I'm wrong, throw it away. If I'm right, call." I stared at the napkin. That number felt heavy for something so small. The waitress came by, topped off the coffee, and gave Marcus a weird look like she was trying to place him. He nodded politely. I folded the napkin in half and slid it behind my driver's license. "Why now?" I asked. He shrugged. "Saw your numbers, saw his pattern, figured the storm's coming." That was the whole conversation. No pitch, no pressure, no offer. Just a mirror he held up. I paid my bill and walked out into a cold wind that cut through my coat. Got into my truck and sat there for a full minute before turning the key. My gut felt tight. That deep, dull twist you get when something lands and you know it's true, but you wish like hell it wasn't. He saw it before I did. That was the part that got me. 2 weeks after that breakfast with Marcus, Wyatt leaned against my office doorway, coffee in hand like we were just shooting the breeze. He goes, "Tanner graduates in May. Sharp kid. We'll put him on something significant." That was it. Like I'd been waiting for the good news. I didn't smile. I just said, "Got it." He thought I'd just keep the machine humming until his nephew was ready to take the wheel. I called Marcus the next morning, told him we needed to meet again. We sat at a different diner this time, still old, still loud. Plates clattering, coffee refills without asking. "I'm not looking to burn the place down," I told him. "Good," he said. "Fires just make smoke. I'm more interested in who can breathe in it." I asked him straight, "What happens if folks like Armand decide not to renew?" He stirred his tea, looked at me like he was checking how honest I wanted him to be. "If they trust the person, not the logo," he said, "they'll follow the person. You can't copy trust like a key." I was the one who answered phones at midnight and showed up when freight got stuck 3 states out. Wyatt didn't even know half their names. Over 7 breakfasts, we built something quiet. We drew lines on napkins. Who counted on me? Who counted on the system? We marked them with simple initials, nothing that could be traced or misunderstood. Our rule was plain. treat folks right, keep promises, don't overreach. I told Marcus early. I wasn't jumping ship until I knew it was time. He nodded. No rush, the pattern always plays out. I started making small moves, introduced him to 3 of my toughest partners, one at a time. I didn't sell him, I didn't talk deals. I just said, this is a friend who respects the work. Then I let them talk. No pressure, no angles, just respect. We met in weird little diners and noisy taquerias, in between loading docks and after shift changes. Loud rooms where nobody cared what was being said. I told Marcus, I'm not here to steal anybody. I just want them to know there's another way. If they ever decide they're done getting jerked around. He nodded. That's how you win without swinging. The day Wyatt made the switch, he did it clean. No emotion, no build-up. Just walked into the ops meeting and said Tanner would be taking over my division, effective immediately. He used that phrase like it made him sound official. Tanner stood up and grinned like he'd just won something he didn't even know how to use. I shook his hand, looked him in the eye, and said, Congratulations. I meant it the same way he meant his grin, polite and empty. People clapped. That slow, stiff kind of clapping you get when the boss's nephew gives a speech about fresh energy and new directions. After the meeting, Wyatt pulled me into his office like he wanted to clear the air. He shut the door, loosened his tie, and gave me that calm, corporate tone. It's just business. 2 weeks to transition. Introduce him to your contacts. I said, sure. He looked relieved. Like he thought I'd blow up, maybe beg or slam the door. Instead, I gave him nothing, and that rattled him more than if I'd shouted. I went back to my office, shut the door, and started packing. 9 years of work fit into 2 boxes. Couple of folders, a framed picture of my daughter, and a stack of notepads full of names, dates, and details Wyatt never cared to learn. People came by, quiet knocks, soft voices. You'll be missed. This isn't right. I nodded, kept my voice even, told them to support Tanner. He's new, he'll need the help. They looked at me like I'd been gut-punched and didn't feel it yet. Truth was, I felt every bit of it. But I'd done my crying the week Marcus slid me that napkin. That night, my phone buzzed. Marcus. How'd it go? I stared at the screen for a second, then typed back, like you said. A few seconds later, are you ready? I took my time, looked around at the dark kitchen, the packed boxes by the door, the weight in my chest I'd carried for too long. Then I wrote, yes. Saturday morning, my phone rang again. Armin. 7 good years, he said. Thanks for that. Means a lot, I told him. He doesn't know what he's inheriting, does he? Probably not. My renewal window hits Monday. Long pause. What if I don't agree? That's your choice, I said. He didn't hesitate. I've made it. He didn't need to say what it was. By evening, 2 more suppliers called. I didn't nudge them, didn't make a pitch. They just wanted to say thank you, talk about what was next, ask where I'd be. They had already decided. Monday morning, I stayed home, made a cup of tea, tried to read something off the shelf I hadn't touched in years, but I couldn't focus. I kept looking at the clock, then at the phone I'd left flipped face down on the counter. Around 10, it lit up like a slot machine. Call after call, Tanner's assistant, ops. Even Wyatt's number, blinking across the screen. I watched them come in, one after the other. I didn't answer a single one. At 11, I powered the damn thing off. 10 minutes later, Marcus texted my personal line. It's happening, 3 out by noon, 2 more leaning. I stared at those words for a long second. Pictured Tanner in that glass-walled conference room, probably standing in front of a whiteboard full of buzzwords, and not a single truck behind him. By afternoon, Marcus confirmed it. 5 confirmed exits. Wyatt must have hit the ceiling, started spitting out legal threats like it meant something. Marcus texted again. No teeth if they just don't renew. He was right. Our contracts were clean. Both sides had to agree to keep going. No tricks, no traps, just yes or no. Tuesday morning, I flipped the work phone back on out of curiosity. 31 messages. I didn't open most of them, but one stood out. Wyatt. We need to talk. Be professional. That word, professional, landed like a slap. After everything, that's what he led with? Like I was the one throwing wrenches in the gears. Late that afternoon, Noelle called. She'd worked for me 6 years. Smart, steady, no drama. Her voice was tight. It's chaos in here. Orders we can't fill. Drivers standing around waiting on loads that don't exist. He asked me for Armand's cell. I paused. What did you say? I told him I didn't have it. I could hear the frustration under her calm. People are scared, Brent. They don't know who's next. Feels like we're in a sinking boat and nobody's got a map. That landed hard. She wasn't wrong. I'm sorry, I said. I know, she replied. But we're the ones carrying boxes when leaders play games. That stuck with me. I hung up and sat in silence for a while. The tea on the table had gone cold. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked at nothing. Inside, I stared at the phone like it might explain itself. Wednesday morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Tanner. I know you're upset. I need help. They won't even answer. For 1 second, I felt it, a flicker of pity. He didn't ask for the storm. He was dropped into it by a man who mistook bloodline for experience. Then I remembered that grin in the meeting room. The way he nodded like he'd finally won something. The pity passed. I didn't answer. Mid-morning, Marcus called. 8 partners out are on pause, he said. 2 more talking. They can't deliver next week. His voice was calm. It always was. That's what happens when you don't lie to yourself about what's coming. Wyatt, on the other hand, went loud. He posted a statement online blaming supplier greed and market instability. I read it once and closed the tab. Anyone who mattered knew better. I heard more from Noelle as the day went on. Short calls, tight updates. Meetings all day, she said. No decisions, just slides and talking points. Any plan? I asked. Depends who you ask, she said. Nobody's aligned. People are defending themselves instead of moving freight. That tracked. When leadership doesn't know the work, they hide behind language, words instead of answers. By afternoon, Wyatt texted me again. Do the right thing. I stared at that message longer than I should have. For years, the right thing meant answering calls at bad hours. It meant standing in cold warehouses and telling people the truth, even when it made us look bad. It meant not throwing my team under the bus when a delivery missed a window. The right thing never meant cleaning up a mess someone else chose to make. I didn't owe him a rescue. I set the phone face down on the table, let it sit there like a dead thing. Outside, the city kept moving. Cars passed. Someone laughed down the block. A bus hissed at the stop. None of them knew or cared about Wyatt's problems. That's how it always is. Your crisis feels loud until you realize it's silent to everyone else. I put on my jacket and stepped out the door. I walked with no plan, past storefronts and traffic lights, past a construction crew yelling over a jackhammer. The air smelled like exhaust and coffee. Normal. Solid. Every few steps, I felt the buzz of my phone in my pocket and ignored it. I didn't need to see the messages to know what they said. Panic dressed up as authority. By the time I looped back toward my place, my shoulders felt lighter. Not because things were easy, but because they were honest. Friday morning, 1 week in, the phone rang again. Wyatt's number this time. I answered, not out of curiosity. I just wanted to hear him say it. He didn't waste a second, didn't bother with hello. You did this? You poisoned those relationships. His voice was tight. Rushed. Like the walls were finally pressing in. I leaned back in my chair, let it hang a second, then said, I didn't poison anything. I introduced decent people to each other. They made their own choices. He snorted, like that answer didn't satisfy him. We built this together, he said. You and me. That history means something. That's when I let it fly. No, we didn't build anything. You showed up twice a year, shook 2 hands, nodded at charts you didn't understand, and left. I built it. With the folks who showed up, stayed late, hit deadlines, and told the truth when things went sideways. We built this. Me and the ones who kept the promises. There was silence on the line. No defense, no denial, just air. Then he said it. Tanner's young. He's learning. I didn't yell. I didn't need to. When did learning start requiring other people's livelihoods as tuition? He didn't answer. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the street. Same traffic, same cold wind whipping through December trees. You want to know what comes next? I said. You'll be explaining delays to buyers who don't give a damn about your family drama. You'll pay penalties on missed timelines. Investors will smell blood and ask real questions. You don't fix that with spin. His breathing changed, tight, shallow. That wasn't me, I said. That was your decision. You handed the keys to a kid who had never built a mile of road and expected him to run a freight system blind. He hung up. No goodbye. I stood there for a second, phone still in my hand, waiting to see if I felt angry or sad or vindicated. But I didn't feel any of it. My hands were steady. My chest was clear. For 9 years, I'd swallowed speeches, bit my tongue, took the hit, kept the peace, let Wyatt play boss while I carried the weight. That was the one I'd been holding, the one that needed to be said out loud, not for him, but for me. And I said it, word for word. I put the phone down, made another cup of tea, and watched the street like it was just another morning, because now it was. By the end of week 3, the shuffle started. Tanner got slid into a special projects role. They didn't say why, just framed it like a strategic pivot. But folks in our trade aren't stupid. You don't move a guy off the field after 21 days unless the wheels came off. Noelle called me the next morning. Wyatt wants you back, she said. More money, same title. I laughed once, soft. Let him want. You're sure? She asked. Going back would teach him the wrong lesson. That he can humiliate a man, then throw cash at the mess and call it fixed. She didn't argue. She knew. After that, the calls came in nonstop. Some were old friends checking in. Some were operators I hadn't spoken to in years. Condolences, questions, offers, gossip. One guy said, "You didn't break anything. You just let the truth out." That one stuck. Made sense. A week later, I met Marcus again. Same diner, same bad coffee. But the conversation was different. This time, it wasn't about what I was leaving. It was about what came next. We didn't talk like boss and hire. We talked like two men who understood that trust is personal, not transferable, not inherited. He looked at me over his mug. You ever think about starting your own thing? I've thought about it, I said, thinking harder now. A month out, I filed the paperwork. Just a small outfit. Lean, no extra weight, no flash. I wasn't trying to build a castle. I just wanted a clean shop where the work mattered. I called Armand first. He answered on the first ring, just like old times. I'm in, he said before I could even explain. On your terms this time. He didn't make a speech, neither did I. We didn't need to. 7 years of trust speaks louder than any pitch. 3 partners shifted over within 2 months. 2 more said they'd follow after their renewals. I hired Noelle even though I couldn't match her old pay. She looked me dead in the eye and said, I'd rather build something honest. And she meant it. I brought on a new kid too, Mira, 24, first real job, sharp, hungry, curious in all the right ways. She asked questions nobody else bothered to ask, and she listened like every answer mattered. I told her, I'll teach you everything I know, and I'll never punish you for being smart. She smiled at that. A real one. I built the place I wish I had worked at when I was 24. One where showing up mattered more than politics, and where trust wasn't some slogan on a wall. It was earned daily in every call and every delivery. A year out from that meeting, my shop was small but steady. 9 suppliers, 13 buyers. Nothing flashy, but real. Every deal had a name on it, not just a company logo. We didn't make big promises. We said what we'd do, and we did it. And if we missed, we said so quick, fixed it faster. That's the whole secret if there is one. Phone rang last month. Tanner. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. His voice came through soft, like the air had been knocked out of him for a while. I wanted to apologize, he said. I thought my uncle was giving me an opportunity. I didn't get mean. I just told him the truth. There's a difference between being handed keys and earning the right to own the truck. He was quiet, then said, Yeah, I understand that now. I didn't unload on him. I didn't need to. 21 days in that seat taught him more than I ever could have. When suppliers stop answering and your team's half scared, half bitter, yeah, You learn fast. He didn't ask me to forgive him, just said he finally got it, that what we did back then wasn't automatic. It had to be earned day after day. I hung up and went back to work. The win was looking at the calendar and seeing orders lined up because people trusted me. Not a logo, not a title, just me. Life got lighter when I let go of hoping that man would ever learn. Noelle runs most of the day-to-day now. She's steady and sharp. Always was. Mira's coming up fast. She's the real deal. Asks the kind of questions that make you want to answer right. Doesn't fake what she doesn't know. When her time comes to move on, I won't guilt her into staying. I won't make her feel like her growth is a threat. I promised myself something early. I'd never become the man who feared his own people. If you're asking what my revenge was, I'll tell you plain. I took my work back. I stopped lending it to men who didn't value it, and I made sure the next person in line gets a better deal than I did.